All right, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to sitting down and talking to Kelly Houseman, who's been on the show before. I appreciate you taking time to be on the show again, Kelly. This time around, and we're going to be talking about many of the things we talked about last time, but I recently watched The Weight of Gold, which is a documentary on HBO about the struggles of Olympians and the depression and anxiety they go to. And there's been so much talk about isolation with COVID and lockdown and the winter months coming around. I thought I'd love to dedicate a week to really just mental health for people to just, have extra tools on how to take care of themselves, their families, balance, if there is such a word anymore, work and family and teaching your kids school, and, all of that. So welcome to the show. I thought we could maybe kick off by talking about, how can people get back to center, right? When they're feeling out of alignment, how can people get back to center in times of chaos and even kind of like under the current chaos, right? Where There's chaos always going on.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because people are handling this in such different ways. Some people are really getting sad and depressed about this. Others are getting really anxious, and others are okay. I've seen in my practice somewhere around all three of those. So yeah, again, it's very individual, and I always encourage people not to compare what their normal is to someone else's, because we're all kind of going through this at our own pace. And basically, my key now is kind of don't put your life on pause. A lot of people are paralyzed with the fear, or they are just trying to pretend that this is not happening. They want to go back, which I totally understand. It makes sense. And let's face it, denial is a great place to be. It's safe, it's comfortable, but we have to kind of just accept where we are now and get out there with our own comfort level.
Yeah, but let's talk about that. I hear you. Don't put your life on pause.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the needed pause that maybe COVID, did give all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, for my wife and my kids, we were finally back at a dinner table for a couple months, which was great. The playing the games, the moment just to stop running 1,000 miles an hour from meeting to meeting to event to charitable event to. It was like you could just, so where's the balance of the pause?
Yeah, and I keep calling it a hard reset. All of us globally have gone through this hard reset. And really, like you mentioned, it's given us all a time to think about, once all of this is over and we're back to, I guess, the normal, what are the things that we want to continue doing that we've learned during this period of quarantine and COVID? Like you'd mentioned, is it a family dinner? Is it commuting less? Is it traveling less for work? Some people have really taken a hard look at, okay, what do I want to continue? And also, what do I not want to continue to? And trying to think about, if nothing else, COVID's really taught us all what's really important in life and brought us back to that. And for many, it's been spending more time with family and more time for ourselves to educate and take care of ourselves and our family. So not necessarily going back to some of the hectic life that we all had beforehand, perhaps.
Yeah, I've seen an increase in people's, and I can speak for myself as well, just back in alignment with your own personal values of what's important and prioritizing. But when you talk about, a lot of people in your practice on what to continue and not to continue, one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of new businesses for people who, don't want to go back to the grind, don't want to be more flexible. They're kind of saying to themselves, maybe I will start my own business. And I'm seeing a lot of that spur up. So can you talk about how people are taking what they don't want to continue and taking action steps to really empower themselves and, do something for them?
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of relates to what we talked about at the beginning, not putting your life on hold, also not putting your goals on hold either. Yes, it looks different right now, but it doesn't mean that we have to, again, maybe we're not going to be traveling to 5 countries this year if our goal was to travel more, but finding other ways to still achieve your goals. Maybe for people that are really interested in travel, it's learning a new language or researching more about the culture of another country, and kind of just, again, following your dreams and still not putting that on hold. Life is still happening.
Yeah.
You can still educate yourself. You can still work on connection with other humans, improve yourself, whether it's in your business world, your personal life, your family life, any of that. You can still keep going with your goals. It just might have to be a little bit modified, but don't stop. Keep going, even if it's slow.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. I love how you just framed that. Don't put your goals on hold. For businesses, I think a lot of businesses come, when mid-March kind of happened, a lot of businesses, they kind of paused their goals and were very focused on nurturing their people to make sure, how to figure all of this out. And, as the weeks went on, I think there was more accountability then layered into place and more clarity on what people needed to do and how they needed to work from home. So I think for companies right now, one of the things I'm seeing is, it's business is moving forward, and in many cases moving forward quickly. And there are a lot of goals and accountability that needs to be put in place. So how do people, individuals, and from your perspective, and companies stay focused on the goal while also balancing and articulating this new way that we are working?
Sure. I think one way is to recognize that everything that you had before the pandemic hit was wonderful, but not necessarily essential to your happiness. And that's what so many of us in the business world, or again, in our personal lives, have found out. And it's really about reframing your thinking to what you still have and can appreciate and can still work on, instead of all the things we don't have, which I know it's a lot. We can't control a lot of that. But finding simple joys in daily life, whether it's, walking your dog or using Zoom to connect with people, just taking a moment to appreciate it. I know it's said all the time, but really gratitude is not to just try to convince yourself that everything's fine and perfect. But usually when we take a moment to appreciate what we do have, which is usually a whole heck of a lot, it can put us in a better headspace.
Yeah, let's talk about gratitude. That's been a common theme of a lot of the people that I've talked to this week. Lauren Kakowski, who's a clinical therapist on Monday, Dr. Paul Kay, who's actually my therapist. Yesterday spoke to 3 people who are in recovery at a recovery center in Israel. And now you, and a very, very common theme has been really getting grounded back in gratitude. And if I had to point to one thing that COVID has gotten me, it's really gotten me into levels of gratitude that, grateful for, just the tiny things that I would maybe just take for granted. And so talk a little bit about gratitude and how to, this is going to go back to the word we've been kind of using, how to really pause and slow down and be grateful, and what grateful really means.
Sure. And again, the gratitude is not just okay, let me get rid of these feelings of anxiety, because they're real. And it's a way for us to be able to control things in a sense, because there's so much going on in the world, we can't predict. And it's hard not to be able to predict things. We human beings like to be able to schedule things and to have some foresight, but the gratitude really just takes it back to the things you can control, whether it's, I'm grateful to be employed right now. I'm grateful that I'm healthy, or I had gotten COVID and beat it. I'm grateful that I have a house, I have food, and that also, you're grateful for those things, but also you are reminding yourself that they're kind of things that you can control. You can look around, you ground yourself in the present moment is very important too. One of the biggest mantras that I've had throughout all of this, and I've been kind of preaching to my clients, is just make it through the 24 hours ahead of you. Just make it to bedtime even, and focusing again, like, okay, today is a Thursday. What am I going to do today to make it through the end of the day? Because it's scary. If we try to think about what life is going to look like a week from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, it can be overwhelming. But okay, what can I do in this 24-hour period to bring myself back to the moment and get a little bit of sense of control?
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about breath for a minute to get back to ground yourself and get control. You spoke at an event that I moderated, and you were great. You were on a panel, and you've been on the show before. And every time we've talked about the power of breath, which is free, just takes, kind of the time and capacity and the discipline to just pause for a moment. So can you just kind of talk about how we use breath?
Sure. I mean, look, our world is so fast paced, everything. We have to answer emails immediately. We try to drive as fast as we can. We often don't just think about taking a breath. And usually when we're anxious, we're breathing a little bit shallow, maybe quicker. And we don't think about just the power of taking a deep breath and the signal that your brain sends your body to, okay, calm down. It's all right. So one technique that I use, it's like a take 5 method. And so it's essentially inhaling for a count of 5. So you take a breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then hold it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then exhale like you're blowing through a straw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you're feeling anxious, mad, scared, any kind of strong emotion, tapping into breath is so important, and it will really give you that reset to just, okay, it's not fight or flight. I can calm down. I can calm my body down, and then hopefully think a little bit more rationally too.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key. Let's, Dr. K, when I had him on the other day, talked about the science between, a fight and flight, and how it's just like an immediate reaction that we have. And sometimes it's really hard to control. And so, how else do we get out of fight or flight? Because, it's difficult. You have the news, which is just filled with, so many messages, so many different perspectives. And if you're not watching the news, you get an email to you, text to you. It's really difficult to run from the news. Yeah. And so, sometimes I find myself taking a day off of the news just because it's like I need a break. So what are some other tips that you can give people to just stay out of fight or flight and then kind of, come back to life?
Well, you hit a big one that I often encourage people is to really be mindful of your consumption of news. I've had some clients that get so overwhelmed with reading about coronavirus, especially, that I've suggested that they have kind of a point person. So maybe it's their mom or their husband that will watch the news, filter it for them. And then if something really noteworthy that they need to know comes out that day, then they will tell them. But really being mindful of where your time is going. Another big one is people scrolling on social media. And I do it too. It's a nice escape from reality. It's a break. But again, being really mindful, our time is limited. Our energy is so limited. And okay, are you going to spend an hour scrolling through social media when you could maybe be using that to do something that will really push you more towards your goal and give you a better sense of fulfillment and happiness in your life? So again, being mindful of where your time and energy is going. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. It doesn't have to be, all right, I have to delete all my social media. I have to take all my TVs out, but setting some kind of time limits. And if you notice emotions getting stirred up every time you watch the news or scroll by people's feeds, okay, maybe I need to reevaluate what I'm watching on a daily basis.
Yeah. Let's talk about school coming up. School is started for some private schools. My kids are going back virtually in about a week. And now the world is going to change again, right? So it will have more structure because it'll just be, classes and things like that, although virtual for most. You have parents trying to balance work. You have parents trying to educate and teach their children. How do people navigate through these next and this is a big question, but the parents, the kids, and the communication, kids to kids, adults to kids, adults to adults, like, can you just kind of chat about that?
Sure. Yeah. And look, it's never a healthy thing to put pressure on yourself to be perfect. And now is certainly not the time to try that. I just keep saying, do the best you can. If it means that you're trying to do a Zoom meeting and your kids are in the background, again, you're not alone. This is an unusual circumstance. This is not the time to, again, try to be the perfect employee, the perfect homeschool teacher, the perfect husband or wife. We're all under a lot of stress. And this is new and no one knows what we're doing. I mean, no one's lived through a pandemic unless there's someone listening that's over 100 that can maybe give us advice, but just cutting yourself some slack. And I know it sounds easy, but we have all this pressure and this is not normal. Life is not normal right now. So just giving yourself permission to be human and to just do the best you can right now is probably the best thing we can all do.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of people who talk about, this is not normal. I mean, it's not normal what we've been used to, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of new normals kind of put into place into our world.
Yep.
Some good, some frustrating, some bad. But one of the things with social distancing and things of that nature, which is at least present right now, I think is, at least I know for me and I think for many, very uncomfortable because it's you can't connect with people the same way, and it just takes away a little bit of that feeling of freedom.
Yep.
So how do you settle into that change that you really have no control over, right? You have to conform.
Yep. The good thing about human beings is that we are very, very adaptable.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's easy. The past is what's known. We knew that we came out the other side alive, and we usually get anxiety because we're living in the future and that fear of the unknown. So all of that is normal. And like you said, it's very different right now. And the reality is, like, we do have a lot of things that we cannot do, or at least cannot do safely. And, also, the times in our lives when we grow the most are not when things are easy, when we're comfortable, when people are telling us how great we are. It's truly when we're going through these times of adversity and challenge. So kind of knowing that we are all going to get through this and come out the other side and make it through. And yes, things are different. Yes, things are unknown, but we can still control many things in our lives. We can still do most things and still live a very happy life. It's just different for a little bit.
Yeah. Excuse me. So, right. You talked about, anxiety lives in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So we're stressed about the past. We have anxiety about the future. Mm-hmm. Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, A New Earth, Love. Yep. Excuse me. Always talking about being present. Yes. It's so easy to read. It's so easy to absorb. It's so easy to want to get there. But how does someone, I think it's hard to stay present in a past normal day. Oh, yeah. How do people stay present today? Right. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about a lot of great things, Kelly. I love, what you're talking about. But when it comes to just the essence of being present, mm-hmm. how are we present when there's chaos all around us in one way? And what I mean by that is, I'm talking to you, I'm very relaxed right now. I'm very present with you. But still in my head is my buddy's dad who's on events. And I'm, kind of saying prayers in the back of my head, and my kids and my wife and my this and my, right. So as present as I am, I'm probably 95% because that's still there. Mm-hmm. So how do you get there?
Mm-hmm. And some of this is often we're trying to just wave a wand and say, I wish I didn't feel anxious. I wish I wasn't worried. I wish I wasn't scared about things. And some of this is we just have to accept that those feelings are going to be here. If I had a wand and I could cure every one of these strong emotions, I would.
Wait, can I just interrupt you for a second? So what you're saying is that's part of maybe being present. Being present isn't nirvana.
Yep.
Being present is realizing that that's part of your presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's real.
Yeah.
Part of being alive is feeling these emotions. Unless someone's really on a good drug, no one walks around smiling all the time and happy with everything. Part of the human existence is fear. It's anxiety. It's human. So a lot of this now is just accepting that, yes, I'm probably going to be more anxious right now. I'm going to be worried about things. I'm going to be more stressed. And, you can try to do things to help that, certainly. But I think part of this is just accepting that we will have these strong emotions, and it's okay. It's okay to have these. Obviously, if they're getting to the point where they're really, really affecting your life or your functionality, then perhaps, seeking professional help, talking to someone, absolutely. But But a lot of my sessions these days have just been saying, yes, this is really hard. I understand. I'm anxious too. I don't like this either. I hear you. And knowing that no one's alone in this, we're all going through this together. And it's kind of nice to know, like, okay, these feelings are normal. It's okay to feel like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of presence is not nirvana. It is. Yeah. Yeah. So I think sometimes, for me, I think for many people, you're trying to find that moment, like that when I meditate, that moment, those whether they're seconds or a minute or minutes where you're just completely thinking about nothing. But again, that's like a little unrealistic right now. All right, I love the way you put that. I want to dive into something you just mentioned, which is, you're talking to your clients. I think in business and life, it's hard for people to be vulnerable and ask for help. So how does somebody reach out for help right now? And what is the right resource, right? There's different levels of therapists. How do people know, who to pick up the phone and call, where to call, and what type of person they need?
Sure. What I love to recommend to people is, and I have no affiliation with them, but Psychology Today has a really great Find a Therapist finder. And you can search by gender, the location, what insurance they take, and it gives you a chance to see the provider's pictures, read their bio, get links to their website. And there's all kinds of different providers on there, from psychiatrists who can prescribe medication, to psychologists who have doctorate degrees, to social workers, to licensed professional counselors. But I always say, like, read through some bios, see who you feel like you can connect with, contact a couple. Many therapists will do a free introductory, 5-10 minute phone call with you. And it's really about being comfortable, finding someone that you feel like, okay, I can open up to this person. I like what they're saying, and trying it. And there's a huge stigma behind what therapy is. And a lot of people think it's just laying on a couch, talking to some old dude and talking about your childhood. But really, therapy is just getting everything that's in your head out.
Yeah.
And it always feels so much better when you can just get that weight lifted off of you. And this person's not going to judge you. They don't know you or your family. They're not going to tell you what to do or, make fun of you. It's really just, okay, how can we make your life better? Let's talk this through. Let's get some strategies and get you moving forward. And it's once you're done with a therapy session, if you've ever had one, it's not always. Sometimes it's heavier stuff, but most of the time you walk out like, "Ooh, okay, it was so great to get that out."
Right.
Now I have relief and I have hope.
Yeah, it feels so great. I mean, relief, hope. I mean, I was sharing, I had my therapist on, I've been going to for 17 years on Tuesday, Dr. Paul K. And he was great. And it is, you need that person to just unwind and talk to. And I'm not a licensed therapist, but I would say that if you are with someone that is judging you, you're at the wrong therapist.
Yes.
So, I did have a therapist for a short time that was very judgmental. And, sometimes you stay too long because you don't realize that it's like, because you're in such a vulnerable position. So if you are getting judged, it's time to find somebody new. So I love what you're talking about. And then just talk for another quick second about trying out a couple before you find the right fit. Because I think that's important too. It's like, and you want somebody who's, I think, going to challenge you, but sometimes people will go once, that person wasn't great, but sometimes it may take 2-3 times.
Yes. And I even usually tell people in the first session, if you're not comfortable with me or whoever it is, like, there's no hurt feelings. Like, you have to find that right fit. And sometimes you find the one and you're just connected right away. But oftentimes it takes getting through, people are different and feeling the vibe from the person. And sometimes it takes 1, 2, 3, 5 different tries to find the one person that is just going to click with you. I never discourage people from, if it's not with me, find someone else, because there will be someone else you can connect with. And I want the person to be able to open up and feel connected to the person, even if it's not me. So don't get discouraged if the first phone call or even the first couple sessions, you're just like, oh, I don't know. There's someone out there that will be a better fit for you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Kelly, you're always filled with great guidance, great advice that's easily digestible. I think that's really important in today's world because I think the attention span of people is tough, and this is a tough topic.
Mhm.
Last couple questions. If you see somebody in your family, if a parent sees their child, let's maybe focus there,
Mhm.
who needs some help. How do you bring it up, right? Because there is that stigma that's attached to it. Until you start the process, then you
Mhm.
don't care. Typically, then you don't care about the stigma because it is, like you said, just gives you so much, peace.
Mhm.
How does a parent bring it up to a child in times where children may feel a little bit more isolated today, moving into the dark winter months of COVID?
Mhm. Yeah, I think doing it in a tone that won't raise someone's defenses. Because if you come at someone and be like, "Why are you so sad? You really need help. You need to snap out of this," that's going to cause the other person to put that wall up, and they're not going to hear you. But if you calmly and really from a warm place talk to them about what you've noticed and why you're concerned, and just say, "Gosh, I love you so much. I've noticed you seem really isolated, or you seem really nervous about stuff." Um, and I don't know if I can help you. I wish I had training. Maybe we can get you to talk to someone and it can help you to not be afraid to leave the house or help you out of this funk that you've been in. And it's really just about the way and the tone of voice that you talk to the person is really going to set the tone for how they respond to you.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's great. And like in business, you role play sales, you role play leadership, you role play effective communication. If somebody needs to kind of role play that out with someone before they have a conversation with this situation, their child, who do they do that with?
Yeah, I mean, it could really be anyone. It could be, gosh, their own therapist. It could be a partner, a friend, a mom, a dad, really just, or even practicing it to yourself, like with an empty chair technique, like pretend your kid is sitting in the chair and going over it so that you feel not so, awkward saying it. I think those are great ways to rehearse too.
It's great. All right, Kelly, finish this sentence. In 2020, one thing everybody needs to do to, have a peaceful landing is,
Practicing gratitude.
uh,
Really, that's truly the key to my happiness, and just always being grateful for what I do have, not negating the things you want to accomplish or what's on your list of to-dos. And yes, I know some people have it harder than others, but again, there's always something to be grateful for, and kind of grounding your life in that and going forward from that place of just appreciation, gratitude. You can't really go wrong with that.
yeah, I have found myself so grateful for just being outside and listening to the birds and nature,
Mhm.
of that nature. But when you just talked about that, it spurred something in my head. I've done a little bit of research on something called earthing, which is if you are barefoot and you walk outside, I'm not going to be able to say it scientifically correctly, but it grounds you to the earth.
Mhm.
And sometimes if I'm feeling really ungrounded, I'll go and walk outside barefoot and in the grass and wherever, because it really I think I believe in the science that it gets you, really even accelerates the grounding process.
Mhm.
In closing, Kelly, what is one, just thought that you want to leave people with as far as taking care of themselves, their mental health, through these next couple months?
Mhm. Yeah, again, whatever you're feeling is okay. We often judge ourselves. I shouldn't feel like this, or I should feel like that, but it's okay. Judging yourself a little bit less, and especially now, don't strive for perfection. Just strive for good enough. Let's all just be good enough together right now, and we will get through this. We will come out the other side. Humans are resilient. Things are different right now, but we're still alive. We're all still here. Our hearts are all beating, so we're doing okay. And
Yeah,
let's keep moving forward together.
yeah, I love it. Kelly, tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. So I have a blog called Kelly's Reality, and that's where you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a new podcast called Kelly's Reality as well. So check that out.
All right, good. Kelly, always a pleasure having you on the show. I appreciate everything that you've shared. I'm going to recap a couple of things, which is don't put your goals on hold. Take a moment to appreciate gratitude. Just make it through the first 24 days. Don't forget to breathe. And the five method, which you gave, which was great. We must kind of, appreciating that we grow in times of adversity. Psychology of today, having a great place to find a therapist, watching your tone, being cognizant of your tone when you talk to people, and in closing, just the power of gratitude. So I can't thank you enough for being on the show. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. I always learn a lot, and I know the Think community does as well. So
thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kelly. Stay safe.
You too. You as well. You and your family. Thank you.
Thanks so much.